simply requires the department to consult with the California Conference of Local Health Officers and the California Association of Public Health Laboratory Directors in order to add an organism to the list, streamlining the process and protecting the public during an emergency. The Department of Finance concluded that this bill would not result in additional costs or increased workload of DPH.
All righty. Testimony in favor. Is there any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment on this?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Miriam Inchinito with the Department of Finance. We believe that the bill would result in no additional cost to DPH, as DPH already has the authority to modify the list for which samples must be submitted. Additionally, the bill does not require any additional disease or conditions to be added to the list. Therefore, we don't believe there will be additional costs estimated for the public health laboratories as well. We believe that some of the costs that public health may have identified were not necessarily driven by the bill, and we didn't believe that there would be increased costs to the locals.
Thank you. Members, we're at file item 186. Any comments, members? We don't yet have a quorum, Mr. Williams, so we will take up the bill for a vote. It is headed to suspense. We won't be taking it up for a vote. No vote but today. We won't take any action on it until we have a quorum. And then because of the general fund impacts, it'll go to suspense, and we'll be working with you in your office while it's on suspense.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good to see you. Mr. Fong? This is AB 288 on community colleges and expulsion. Please begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. AB 288 provides a tool for community college districts by giving them the ability to share information to protect students and personnel from students who have been expelled for serious acts of violence. Without this act, violent students will be able to transfer and re-enroll at other community college campus without disclosing their expulsion. This bill permissively allows the community colleges to hold a hearing to determine the eligibility of the student. We don't believe there is a mandated cost. The sponsors and I don't believe there is a mandated cost. We were careful in setting up an optional tool for districts to utilize if they so choose. We look forward to working with the committee while on suspense to address the cost concerns so we can move this bill off of suspense. AB 288 passed the Assembly floor 6-0 and the Senate Education Committee 10-0 unanimously with bipartisan support.
Thank you, Mr. Fong. Is there testimony in favor?
Yes, Patrick McCallum, Chairman, members representing Peralta, San Jose, Kern, Rio Hondo, and South Orange Community College districts in support of the bill. This is the sixth fiscal hearing this bill has gone through. This is the first time there's been some identifiable issues around cost, and we look forward to working with you and your staff. We don't think there's any cost. It's voluntary on the district's part, so get that clarification so we can move this bill and districts can have safety.
We'll work with you while it's on suspense. Any other testimony in favor? Any other testimony opposed? Finance, you have a comment on this one?
The Chancellor's Office estimates that the costs could range from $216,000 to $360,000, Proposition 98 General Fund dollars, for the California Community College districts to consult with district council in advance of a hearing and to conduct hearings, assuming that each of the 72 community college districts had one hearing per year at $3,000 to $5,000 per hearing.
Any additional comment, public comment? We note that the Chancellor has identified costs too. Members, any comments on this bill? Do we have a quorum now? All right. Excuse us while we call the roll, please.
Kehoe?
Here.
Kehoe here. Walters?
Here.
Walters here. Allquist?
Here.
Allquist here. Emerson? Emerson here. Liu?
Here.
Liu here. Pavley? Price? Runner? Steinberg.
All right, we have a quorum. Members, AB 186 by Mr. Williams is a candidate for suspense, and we'll go there. And then also Mr. Fong's AB 288 is a candidate for suspense, and it will go to suspense file also. Thank you, Mr. Fong. And we have no members in Senate Appropriations now, so for those members who are waiting to present, Mr. Bell, Mr. Berryhill, Ms. Ma, Dr. Pan, etc., we would urge you to come to room 4203. Members, we can go to those items that The author has waived presentation. That's okay. Madam Vice Chair? We'll start then with AB 180 by Carter. This is academic performance in our schools. AB 180, is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Anything on AB 180? And Finance, do you have a comment on this?
No information is available to determine the number of schools that would meet the dropout recovery high school definition, or the subset of those schools who would elect to use the growth model. However, the bill would create new responsibilities for the state superintendent of public construction and the board and staff, which would result in new general fund costs. Because the potential number of reviews is unknown, the state costs is indeterminable.
All righty. That item goes to suspense, members, unless anyone has a comment. I skipped Mr. Fuentes' AB 1358, vehicle misdemeanors, violations. Is there testimony in favor of AB 1358, violations of vehicle misdemeanors? Any testimony opposed? Finance, do you have a comment on this one?
We do not believe the bill would result in a reimbursable state mandated program, and so any local government costs would not be borne by the state.
All righty. The committee has a different analysis, and we want to make sure we have time to examine it in suspense, so it'll go there. Let me see. Mr. Berryhill is waiving suspense on AB 286. Mr. Berryhill is waiving suspense on AB 286, having to do with state highways. Is there testimony in favor of AB 286 by Mr. Berryhill? Testimony in favor. Opposition testimony. Finance, do you have a comment on this one?
This bill would allow the retention of the proceeds from Caltrans excess land sales within their jurisdiction to go towards local projects instead of being directed to the state highway account for the highest statewide needs and priorities. And the bill would reduce the state's authority to use non-Article 19 revenues from the sale of excess property to reimburse the general fund for debt service payments made on Proposition 116 bonds beyond July 1, 2013, and we believe that amount is $3 million.
All righty, that item goes to suspense. The next item for which presentation has been waived is Mr. Block's AB 668 on CSU, California State University. Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Seeing none, Finance, do you have a comment on this one?
The California State University system states that it would incur one-time costs of about $65,000 to devise written guidelines and to notify faculty and test administrators about the new policies.
All righty, and that item goes to suspense. Next item is the Speaker's Bill, AB 673, the Office of Multicultural Health. AB 673, is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Seeing none, Finance, do you have a comment on that?
The Department of Public Health estimates that the additional workload would result in estimated ongoing costs of $66,000, general fund to support a half a position annually, and the Department of Finance is opposed to this measure.
All right. That item goes to suspense. Next item for which presentation has been waived is Assemblymember Bonilla's AB 846, Identity Theft of Foster Youth. I see some testimony in favor. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'm opposed. No, just kidding. Kathy Sunderling with the County Welfare Directors Association. We're in strong support of the measure. I understand it's a suspense candidate, of course, but did just want to note that the concept behind the bill is to allow us to implement an underlying existing law from 2006 in the most flexible and efficient way possible. So putting this flexibility in will hopefully allow us to work with the Department of Social Services, County Human Services, and County Probation Offices to figure out the least expensive way to do what current law already requires. We'd appreciate your consideration on suspense.
Thank you.
Juliana Vorse with the Urban Counties Caucus, also in strong support of the batch system. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor of AB 846? Is there opposition to AB 846 on foster youth on identity theft? Seeing none, Finance, do you have a comment on this?
Madam Chair, members, the language in the bill is not specific as to whether DSS or the county welfare directors is responsible for requesting the credit reports for foster care children. Although DSS has not provided an updated estimate based on previous analysis of similar measures, it would be $141,000, of which $89,000 would be from the general fund in fiscal year 11-12, $285,000, $180,000 of general fund in 12-13, and $230,000, of which $145,000 is general fund annually thereafter, if DSS would be required to do this. Alternatively, if CWDs are responsible for doing the credit checks, the bill would result in estimated costs of $430,000, of which $280,000 would be general fund in 11-12, $735,000, of which $478,000 would be general fund in 12-13, and ongoing by imposing the state reimbursable mandate. It would result in no additional cost to the State and Consumer Services Agency. And
thank you, Finance, Ms. Ingenito. Any comments, members, on AB 846? Seeing none, that item goes to suspense. And Mr. Monning is here. Welcome. Mr. Monning will be presenting on behalf of the Speaker AB 1066, Medi-Cal. Members, I believe there's bipartisan support to move this bill to the floor today, if you just want to make note of that while we listen to the testimony. Mr. Monning, please go ahead. This is AB 1066, members.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members. As mentioned, I'm presenting this on behalf of Speaker Perez. AB 1066 makes technical changes to existing law which implements the Medi-Cal Bridge to Reform demonstration project. Last year, the Speaker's AB 342 and the Senate Pro Tem's SB 208 were companion bills passed to implement this federal demonstration project. Under the project, California will receive $10 billion in federal funds to fund health services during the transition to full implementation of federal health care reform. AB 1066 makes technical changes to conform to federal requirements that were finalized last fall. This will ensure timely and accurate receipt of federal dollars. For example, AB 1066 renames the county coverage expansion and enrollment demonstration programs as, quote, low-income health programs, close quote, in order to stay consistent with the federal terms. AB 1066 also provides the necessary funding parameters for the allocation of dollars to California's public hospitals. I understand the bill meets the criteria for referral to suspense. However, I would respectfully ask for an aye vote to pass the bill out today. As the committee analysis fairly points out, there's urgency to giving the department the authority to make the payments to the public hospitals under the new waiver methodology. This will minimize potentially significant disruption to hospitals at a time when they are restructuring their delivery systems. Again, I respectfully ask for your aye vote. I appreciate this opportunity to present and would ask the Chair's permission to present witnesses in support.
Thank you, Mr. Monning. This is $10 billion to help bridge with the federal health care reform,
to the
correct?
2014 reform,
Good.
yes.
So we just want to be clear on that. We'll go to your witnesses in favor. I see many lined up against the wall. So after the first couple of witnesses, if you'll highlight the fiscal matters in the bill, then we'll just take names and positions on the bill, and then we'll go to opposition if there is any. Please introduce yourself.
Melissa Stafford-Jones, California Association of Public Hospitals and Health Systems. We strongly support this bill. It does provide the technical implementation measures to allow for payments to public hospitals to be made for the critical services they provide to Medi-Cal and uninsured beneficiaries, including the implementation of several new programs to expand coverage and to transform their systems of care to prepare for reform. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Alquist. We have a motion. We'll continue with the testimony.
Juliana Vorsh of the Urban Counties Caucus, also in strong support of providing the funding to public hospitals and making these technical changes.
Kelly Brooks on behalf of the California State Association of Counties, also in support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gerardo Pinedo, Department of Health Services, Los Angeles County. We're in strong support. This bill will help us ensure that we receive funding that's critical to continue to serve the over 700,000 individuals who we serve in our system annually. Thank you.
Next, please.
Lynn Lindsay with the law firm of Nielsen Merksimer on behalf of Contra Costa County and Riverside County. We would like to convey our support for this measure also.
Thank you. Next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Kathy Sunderling with the County Welfare Directors Association in support.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, as well as the Ventura County Board of Supervisors in support.
Thank you.
Devin Anderson on behalf of San Mateo County in support.
Libby Sanchez on behalf of Laborers Local 777 and 792, representing employees at public hospitals in support.
Thank you.
Gary Passmore with the Congress of California Seniors. Urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony to AB 1066? Any opposition testimony? And Finance, do you have a comment on this?
That we believe the bill makes technical changes necessary for the Department of Healthcare Services to implement the special terms and conditions required by the federal government, and as such, we believe that the bill would result in no additional new costs to the state.
Comments, members? I'll go to the Vice Chair, Senator Walters.
Forgive me if you addressed this in your comments and I didn't hear you, but I know that there had been some concerns with the district hospitals regarding the allocation, and my understanding is that you've made a commitment to make sure that their concerns are taken care of.
Yes, Senator. Thank you for asking that. They've been part of our discussions. They'll continue to be front and center in our discussions. My county, Monterey County, has a district hospital, Salinas Valley Memorial, so we're keenly aware of the interest of the district hospitals.
Any other questions, members? We have a motion on the bill. Seeing no further discussion, then I'll call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Walters? Walters, aye. Alquist?
Aye.
Alquist, aye. Emerson? Emerson, aye. Liu? Liu, aye. Pavley? Price? Price, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
6-0. I'll leave the roll open. Senator Pavley's in EQ. But members, we will close the roll before we go to session on all the items, so you're aware of that if you have to step out.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Monty. You can tell the Speaker you did a good job.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Speaker, I thank you all.
Members, session moved to 1 o'clock, so we'll be able to wrap this up before then. You're aware that session is at 1 p.m. We'll see about that. Next is Assemblymember Atkins. Let's see who we've got here. We do file order here. It is Assemblymember Atkins. Mr. Swanson, you'll be up in just a couple items.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and or Madam Chair, sorry, and members. I'm here to present today on AB 342, which establishes a liaison with the Office of Planning and Research to coordinate with the Department of Defense. As you know, the military has a large presence in California, and in fact, the military accounts for nearly $60 billion in direct spending and contracting in our state. California and the Department of Defense have a long history of cooperation when it comes to carrying out the military mission in California. In recent years, through executive order, the Department of Defense has benefited from the creation of a short-term liaison. The executive orders were issued at times when extreme need was called for. And while the efforts met with varying levels of success, one thing was clear between all parties. Had they already established a working relationship and understanding of the sensitivities that exist between the state and the Department of Defense, they may have had more expedient and positive results. AB 342 demonstrates the state's commitment to ensuring that the military mission in California is successful. It further shows support for the men and women and families of military. There are no costs associated with this bill, as proven by recent executive orders that were not accompanied with financial resources to carry out the executive order, and I think that's the main question you're looking at today. AB 342 is a candidate for suspense, and while we believe there are no additional costs associated with the bill, we're happy to work with staff on the fiscal issue. With me today...
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With me today are Ned McKinley of the U.S. Marine Corps and Randall Friedman from the Department of the Navy, and they're willing to comment or answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. We have identified some costs, but we will work with you in your office while it's on suspense. We'll go to your witnesses now.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senators. My name is Ned McKinley, here on behalf of Marine Corps Installations West, also here today on behalf of the Army and the Air Force in support of the bill. Just a couple of quick words about it. In terms of the broad range of planning challenges facing the state, water, land use, renewable energy, OPR can play a central role in making sure that the Department of Defense is part of that discussion. Also, the historical role that OPR has played, it's helped out in measures that help out service members and their families, education, protection from predatory lending practices, and so on. And we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Next, please.
Madam Chairman, members, Randall Friedman on behalf of Navy Region Southwest. We're in support. We look forward to, as always, with creating a strong partnership with the state of California.
Thank you. Any additional testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment on this?
According to the Office of Planning and Research, the bill would require one full-time staff person at a cost of $100,000 from the general fund, and that would be an ongoing cost. The Department of Finance is opposed to this measure.
Thank you. Members, this is a candidate for suspense. So unless there's objections to that, it'll go to the suspense file, and then we'll work with Assemblymember Atkins in the meantime. Thank you. Let's see. Mr. Swanson, still we have Mr. Chesbro now. We're in file item order in this committee. We'll take up AB 384, and then we'll go to Mr. Swanson. This item is a due pass, members. Mr. Chesbro, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. AB 384 would authorize the Department of Parks and Recreation, CAL FIRE, and the City of Fort Bragg and the County of Mendocino to engage in a triple land swap. I'll be taking the amendments recommended in the analysis. The amendments require the City of Fort Bragg and the county to retain responsibility for monitoring and mitigation of the shutdown of the landfill site if the State Department of Parks and Recreation does acquire the 35 acres of land. In addition, the local governments should retain access if the site is transferred to complete those monitoring tests. This land swap is needed to complete a long-haul facility that will replace Fort Bragg's outmoded garbage system. This new system will save money in transit fees by allowing fewer trips and is also carbon-friendly, more environmentally friendly. Coming to the transfer agreement has been a collaborative process between the state agencies, local agencies, including the Department of General Services. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chesbro. And the amendments are noted on page 2 of the analysis for the members. Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony?
I move the bill.
Thank you. With amendments, Senator Alquist. Thank you.
As amended.
Thank you. And Finance, do you have a comment on this one?
The bill would result in minor and absorbable costs, as all reasonable costs associated with the transaction would be covered by the city or the county, including the costs related to CEQA. We do note, however, that should the 17 acres of the Jackson State Forest lands be deemed as surplus, this would result in foregone revenues that from the sale of such property.
Thank you. Unless there's comments, members, I'll ask for a roll call. Okay, seeing none, call the roll, please.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Walters? Aye. Walters, aye. Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Emerson? Aye. Emerson, aye. Liu? Liu, aye. Pavley? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
6-0. We'll keep the roll open for some absent
Thank you very much for your kind consideration, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you, Mr. Chesbro. Mr. Swanson, AB 828, food stamps eligibility. And this is also a candidate for suspense. And you can begin whenever you're ready, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I have introduced this bill before, and even on one occasion it cleared appropriations and made it to the governor's desk. This is a bill that I think has timely importance to us in the state. It is a bill that that allows us to use the CalFresh program, which formerly known the food stamp program, to assist us in our reentry strategy. It involves food stamps being made available to those who have served their time and are attempting to reenter our community. It helps California by receiving more participation in the food stamp program. It helps the small businesses that provide nutritional assistance. For every dollar that's spent in our state, we benefit by $1.74. And it helps us lower our recidivism rate. And given the orders that California is under and the crisis that's facing us in our prison system, we have to develop a successful reentry strategy. Food, nutrition is basic to that effort. And I think that it will serve us better during this crisis for us to embrace this program, which is substantially federal dollars, to assist us in our reentry strategy. With that, Madam Chair, I would ask my witnesses to self-introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. The committee notes the analysis that there are some significant administrative costs. This has gone to suspense in prior years, but we will work with your office while it's on suspense. We'll go to your witnesses now. Who's first?
Hi, my name is Tamika Butler, and I'm a member of the Women's Policy Institute Economic Justice Team. And I'm here in behalf of that organization in strong support of AB 828. As the member has mentioned, we believe that AB 828 will increase access to food for low-income families. And during this tough economic time, we feel that it's crucially important for these families to have access to nutrition, to be able to feed their families. And we also think that this will stimulate the local economies, because CalFresh benefits are going to come 100% from the federal government, and this will allow low-income families who spend a lot of money on food to free up some of that money and spend it on other taxable goods, such as backpacks and books for their children. And we also think this will reduce these families' dependence on other safety net, state-funded resources. Finally, we do believe that this ban, if lifted, will reduce the administrative burden on the counties. We believe that, as the analysis states, there will not have to be the burdensome hearings that currently go on when trying to determine if someone is eligible or not eligible for the ban. So, in closing, we realize that that AB 828 will move to suspense, but we're eager to work on it and see if we can do what we can to move the bill forward.
Thank you. Next, please.
Sure. Thank you, Chairwoman Kehoe. Jessica Bartholow with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. We are a co-sponsor of the bill, here to support the comments already made by the Assembly member and my colleague from the Women's Policy Institute, and also just to thank the committee staff for the work they did on the analysis, and we also look forward to working with them while on suspense. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Liberty Sanchez on behalf of the California Public Defenders Association. We have a 70% recidivism rate in California. The surest way to reduce that recidivism rate is to provide an appropriate reentry path for these individuals. For those reasons, we're in strong support.
Thank you. And now, if we could just have name and your position on the bill.
Katerina Burton with the California Hunger Action Coalition, in strong support of the bill.
Thank you.
Pastor Grajeda out of Alameda County, representing the Gamble Institute, which deals with parolees.
In support of the bill?
In support of the bill, we ask that you say aye.
Thank you. Okay. We will, the bill is going to go to a suspense file, and we'll deal with it in a couple of weeks, but in the meantime, we'll work with the author and his staff to see how to address the costs.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Sean Vasquez, representing Healthy Oakland out of Oakland, California. Here to support AB 828. Please pass the bill.
Thank you. Next, please.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, as well as the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, in strong support.
Thank you.
Beth McGovern with the California Commission on the Status of Women, in support.
Kathy Sunderling with the County Welfare Directors Association, in support.
All righty. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Any opposition testimony? Seeing none. Finance, do you have a comment on this?
By expanding CalFresh eligibility, the bill would result in general fund costs, as it would increase the CalFresh caseload and associated administrative costs. The increased costs would likely be minor, as this bill would result in negligible increase to eligible individuals based on caseload data on the number of adults excluded from CalFresh due to drug felony. Current law requires that the state and counties to share in the non-federal portion of the cost of administration for the CalFresh program. By imposing additional workload on the counties, the bill could result in a reimbursable state mandate, and as such, the non-federal costs resulting from this measure would be borne entirely by the general fund.
Thank you. Members, any comments on this? Again, this is headed to suspense. If there's no objection, then it goes to the suspense file. Mr. Swanson will work with you while it's on suspense.
Okay, and I hope, Madam Chair, that the committee will look at the potential results from reducing our recidivism rate with the use of this program and that cost savings to the state. If you do that, I don't think it's even a close question of whether or not we should change the law in this regard. They are clear, even if a fraction of the inmates are impacted as positively as they have been in other states, the state stands to save millions of dollars. And I think that is something that we can't afford to avoid.
Good points, Mr. Swanson, and staff will also be mindful of the upfront costs of starting these programs, even if there are savings on the back end. So we have to balance, and that's where the dialogue with you and your office will be important.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. And now we'll go back to the top of the file. Ms. Ma, I think you are next. And this is, and then we'll go to Dr. Pan. I see you there, yes. This is AB 300, Safe Body Art Act. This is a due pass, members.
Good morning, members. Thank you very much. I'd like to take care of some housekeeping and accept the committee's suggested amendments. Assembly Bill 300 is a reintroduction of AB 223, which was vetoed by the governor last year. His veto statement claimed the bill was overly prescriptive, so we have addressed his concerns by taking out all of the prescriptive language that he addresses in the veto. California still does not have enforceable statewide standards when it comes to tattooing and body art. It doesn't make sense that manicurists in the state have 400 hours of training to be licensed, yet if you want to tattoo or body pierce someone, there are no minimal level of training or certifications. With me today are my sponsors, and I'll have them self-introduce.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Madam Chair, members, Justin Malone on behalf of the local environmental health directors. We have been working on this multi-year, multi-party effort for a while now. We're thrilled to have this co-sponsored with the industry and the regulators. And I just wanted to stress the fact that this will actually save the state funds. This is entirely a local program. The fact that this is put in statute, we're streamlining the plethora of local ordinances, some of which are many, many years old, and this will negate the need for any state intervention or state action. So we urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Next, please.
Madam Chair, members, Mike Knutson here on behalf of the ear-piercing industry in strong support of the bill. Every case of hepatitis that we avoid is a fiscal benefit to the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Ryan Spencer, California Medical Association, just in support.
And next, please.
Kristen Hare, California Society for Dermatology and Dermatologic Surgery in support.
I move the bill.
Move it.
Kelly Brooks
Senator
on behalf of
the
California State Association of Counties in support.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco in support.
You're next, sir.
Bruce Palmer with the Health Officers Association of California in strong support and co-sponsors.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Is there opposition? Seeing none. Finance, you have a comment on this?
Costs associated with this measure to the Department of Public Health would be minor and absorbable, and the Department of Finance is neutral on this measure.
All righty. This is a due pass. We have a motion by Senator Alquist. Is there any comments, members? Anything? Then we will, Ms. Mai, do you want to close?
No, just respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Call the roll, please. And this is as amended.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Walters? Walters, no. Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Emerson? Aye. Emerson, aye. Liu? Aye. Liu, aye. Pavley? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
5-1. We'll leave the roll open for the absent members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Pan, this is AB 301, Managed Care and Medi-Cal.
Correct. Okay. Well, Madam Chair and Senators,
Members, children with serious and chronic health conditions such as congenital heart disease, cancer, cleft palate, premature birth, and other life-threatening conditions depend on California's Children's Services, or CCS, program for high-quality care. And AB Assembly Bill 301 is a simple yet critical measure for ensuring the continuum of care is maintained for children receiving these very specialized services. As amended, AB 301 would extend the sunset for the original carve-out for managed care until July 1st, 2016, and expresses its intent to coordinate the carve-out with the outcomes of pilots that DHCS will be running to evaluate the provision of CCS services. Members, I would caution you that as the analysis indicates, the cost to the state is most uncertain if this bill does not move forward, as the department would retain unilateral authority over the program to determine when and how to end the carve-out rather than waiting until the outcomes of the evaluations of the pilots, which the department has yet to begin. And I have here with me today to testify in support of the bill, Aaron Givens with the Children's Specialty Care Coalition. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, Tim Shannon, representing the Children's Specialty Care Coalition. I will introduce the Executive Director. As the committee analysis does state, that this bill can only cost money if it doesn't move forward. If it does move forward, there is no state cost. Thank you.
Hi, Erin Givens on behalf of the Children's Specialty Care Coalition. We represent the pediatric subspecialists based at the children's hospitals and pediatric tertiary centers throughout the state. We urge you to support this bill and move it forward, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next, please.
Madam Chair, members, Randy Perry there and Reed and Associates on behalf of the California Children's Hospital Association in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment on this?
The Department of Health Care Services indicates that the bill has an indeterminable fiscal impact. Carve-outs for certain services from managed care capitated rates may help to ensure access to those services and limit risk to managed care plans. However, the carve-outs also are likely to increase cost pressures to the Medi-Cal program overall.
Thank you. I'll go back to Dr. Pan. Members, this is called out as a may meet suspense criteria. I would argue that it should go to suspense. This is a very complex funding mechanism. We would like to take the time it's in suspense to look at the costs, and you hear finances also has some concerns about the costs here. Dr. Pan, would you like to close?
Well, I guess I would respectfully just say that this carve-out has been in existence for a couple different cycles. The DHCS is planning to do pilots to look at what the actual alternatives may be, and I think it's pretty clear that if we just continue the carve-out, which this bill would do, that there would be no change in the expense of the state. So I think that part is pretty straightforward. Thank you. So I hope that the committee would consider just passing this out. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further comment, then the item will go to the suspense file. Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Pan.
Well, thank you.
We'll work with you in the meantime.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's see. We have who's here? Oh, Mr. Solario. Good. AB 315, Mr. Solario. This is on surplus line brokers, commonly known as insurance folks. And this we'd like to see as a due pass, members. After we hear the testimony. Mr. Solario, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairwoman and members. This bill is a simple bill. It's also a consensus measure that conforms California surplus line insurance law to the recently enacted federal financial reform law. Federal law requires conformity by July 21st of this year, which is why this bill is an urgency measure. I want to thank the committee for setting this bill so quickly. We've been working out all the issues with the stakeholders, and we've received bipartisan support so far. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Solario. We'll go to your witnesses.
Yes, Laura Alarcon with the Department of Insurance. As the sponsor of this bill, we respectfully request your aye vote. AB 315 has minor and absorbable fiscal costs to the department. It is critical that AB 315 is enacted by July 21st to ensure a smooth transition of our surplus line law here in California and to avert any major disruption in the surplus line market. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Madam Chair and members, John Norwood on behalf of California Insurance Wholesalers Association and the National Association of Professional Surplus Lines Offices. We would just second the comments of the department and urge your support of this bill. Thank you very much.
I move the bill.
Gary Passmore with the Congress of California Seniors. Urge your aye vote. Thanks.
Senator Alquist moves the bill. We completed the in favor testimony unless there's additional folks who want to speak in favor of the bill. Is there any opposition testimony? Seeing none, Finance, do you have a comment on this?
We do. While the taxes on surplus line policies are remitted to the general fund, this bill would not result in an impact to the general fund because federal law does not allow for variance between federal and state law. And so coming July 21st, 2011, we have to be in compliance with federal law.
Thank you. Members, as I said, this is a due pass unless there's objections to that. We have a motion by Senator Alquist. Any further comment? Then we'll call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Walters? Walters, aye. Alquist? Alquist, aye. Emerson? Emerson, aye. Liu? Liu, aye. Pavley? Price? Price, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
6-0, Mr. Solario, and we'll keep that roll open. There's a couple of members in other committees.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Bell, welcome. How are you? This is the education of foster youth. Members, this is another one that may meet suspense criteria. Again, we think there are significant reimbursable mandates. I would lean towards suspense. But Mr. Bell, give us your presentation, and we'll take it from there.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members. Foster youth and former foster youth face significant barriers to accessing their higher education, but only 20% of foster youth actually get enrolled in institutions of higher education. And unfortunately, only 2 to 3% of former foster youth actually graduate from college with a 4-year degree. To address this issue, our bill, AB 194, will provide priority enrollment for classes to foster youth and former foster youth at California's public colleges and universities. AB 194 will ensure that foster youth are granted access to the classes they need in order to graduate. Because the number of foster youth and former foster youth attending these public institutions are relatively low, the cost to state will be minor and absorbable, but our impact on the vulnerable population will be huge, and I request your aye vote. We have witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. We'll go to your witnesses.
Judith Michaels, California Federation of Teachers, and many factors ranging from poverty to lack of family support to inadequate financial aid face foster youth, and this would be a great investment. I think it can be done at a relatively low cost within our colleges.
Very good. Next, please.
Debbie Look, we represent California State PTA. We believe that the children transitioning out of the foster care system face tremendous challenges, and this is one step to provide them with the support they need to get the education that will sustain their futures.
Thank you. Next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Kathy Sunderling with the County Welfare Directors Association, also in support. Just briefly, a couple of points on the fiscal as you consider the bill. To the extent that we help these youth get through college, it will reduce long-term costs in other programs and systems where they commonly are served as former foster youth, such as the welfare system, the food stamp program, and unfortunately the criminal justice system as well, Madam Chair, as you know. And just to say as well, last year on a bipartisan basis, the legislature passed AB 12, the bill to extend foster care to age 19 starting in January of 2012 and then hopefully up to age 21 over a 3-year period. In order to participate in that program, these youth have to be enrolled in college or another training program or working full or part-time. And so this bill will help to make sure that the youth who want to participate will be able to do so by ensuring that they can enroll in these classes. So for those reasons, we urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Additional?
Kelly Brooks on behalf of the California State Association of Counties in strong support.
Michael Radigan on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, Santa Clara County, in support.
Thank you. Next, please.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco in support.
Thank you.
Rosa Deanda from the California Community College Chancellor's Office. We urge your support of this bill.
Thank you. And is there any additional testimony in favor? Is there any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
The bill would likely create a reimbursable mandate that could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in Proposition 98 general funds to community college districts to identify and to notify students and to process their priority enrollment. The California Community College Chancellor's Office states that any cost to the community college would be minor and absorbable. However, this estimate only reflects the potential increase to enrolled cost and does not reflect program implementation costs that could result from the reimbursable mandate. According to UC, the administrative cost to adopt priority registration policy at each of its campus and to identify foster students who would be eligible each term would be minor and absorbable. That was to UC, sorry, and then CSU system has indicated that it would have one-time costs of $45,000 to develop a priority registration process at the remaining 15 campuses, because it already does this in some of its campuses, and it would incur about $9,500 in annual ongoing costs system-wide to design foster youth students, or to designate foster youth students for each academic term.
Thank you. Let's see. We, Mr. Bell, have an issue with the mandate here. We'd like a little time to work on that. We held an earlier bill on the community colleges about that has mandate issues. So I would recommend putting this into suspense. Is there any objection or comment, members? Mr. Bell, you want to close?
Yes, I have no objections to putting in suspense. We'd be happy to work with your staff to minimize or eliminate the cost.
You're always working on the right issues here for our foster youth. So just give us a little time to work this out.
Thank you.
It's not an urgency measure. So then without objection, AB 194 goes to the suspense file. Thanks, Mr. Bell.
Thank you.
And we have Mr. Hernandez, AB 1182. And then, members, we've got one more item that's a waive presentation, and I have to present the claims bill, and then that's it. All right, Mr. Hernandez, go right ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I present to you AB 1182. AB 1182 will eliminate the vehicle asset limit on CalWorks applicants and recipients, enabling these poor, low-income working families to meet a basic necessity of having a reliable means of transportation to work. We know that people are facing incredible challenges to meet their basic and daily needs of food and shelter. Although CalWorks provides temporary supplemental aid to families, the primary goal of the program is to move families out of poverty and towards self-sufficiency. The vehicle limit was originally designed to allow families to retain a reliable car to participate in the mandatory work participation hours and maintain employment. In order to be eligible for CalWorks, an applicant or recipient cannot have a vehicle worth more than $4,650. The existing vehicle asset test proves to be a hindrance to families whose vehicle value is slightly above the limit because they ultimately face the choice between losing their automobile or forgoing needed cash assistance. Similar legislation to AB 1182 has been attempted in the past, though this year is very different from previous years. Just this year, the asset test was eliminated in the state's food stamp program, CalFresh, and in Medi-Cal. Additionally, across the country, 5 states, Ohio, Virginia, Louisiana, Alabama, and Maryland, have already eliminated all of the asset tests in their work to welfare programs, and 33 states have already exempted at least one vehicle from any asset test, and 19 of those states exempt vehicles entirely. We need to remember that county welfare departments have already sustained severe reductions over the past several years, including a $375 million reduction, which we as a legislature approved this year. Although there would be some costs associated with a slight increase in CalWorks caseloads, these costs are negligible. The Senate Appropriations analysis noted that AB 1182 will result in substantial future and indirect savings or cost savings of $5 million to counties. These county savings could be redirected to other services that would help increase the welfare to work programs, provide more employment services, and finally, increase employment of CalWorks recipients, which will move them off of aid more quickly. All of these redirected services can potentially reduce grant costs and time on aid, resulting in significant future CalWorks cost savings. It is significant to note that this is the first year that this type of legislation has received bipartisan support on the Assembly floor and has also received co-authorship from the Republican side of the aisle. With that, here to testify in support and to answer questions is Jessica Bartholomew from the Western Center on Law and Poverty.
Thank you. We'll go to your witnesses.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jessica Bartholomew, Western Center on Law and Poverty. We're here to offer testimony in support of 1182. As you heard from the member, the state of California has the option to have an asset vehicle limit, and we have chosen to do so at the level of $4,650. But there are still federal laws with regards to the CalWORKS program administered by the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program federally that still require families to be very low income before they participate. Here in California, after the recent budget cuts signed by Governor Brown are enacted later this week, families will be below 30% of the poverty line. That's with a grant amount, an average grant amount for a family of three of about $468 a month. We expect very few of these families to have a vehicle worth over that amount. And in fact, research from LA County show that currently beneficiaries who apply for the program, very few of them, very, very minimal amount of them are actually prevented from entering the program due to a vehicle. Removing the vehicle resource test for the CalWORKS program may enable some of those families to come into the program and actually offer them an opportunity to move off more quickly. There is a lot of academic research that shows, even here in California, that in urban areas and rural areas alike, a family that is low income and has an automobile is more likely and more quickly able to move off of the welfare program and into work. So removing the vehicle asset limit will help those families do exactly what the CalWORKS program is aimed to do, to move out of welfare and into work. But more significantly, because very few families do benefit from removing the vehicle asset rule, what it will really do is remove some of the barriers for caseworkers to help families get into those placements. So instead of spending time preventing families from coming on to aid and screening every household that comes in to apply for an auto, and whether or not it is below the amount, below the limit, they can actually spend that time to help families get onto work faster.
Thank you.
So
we'll go
thank
to
you.
your next witness.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kathy Sunderling with the County Welfare Directors Association. We're also in support. We hear from our workers that it feels quite counterintuitive.
Yeah, very briefly, members. Okay, we're under a little time constraint here.
I understand.
It's going to suspense also.
Absolutely. With that said, just to indicate that, as Ms. Bartholow noted, and the author as well, to the extent that we're more quickly able to get people back to work, there are grant savings associated with that, both in the immediate and in the long term. Just one person working 10 hours a week at $10 an hour more than they otherwise would will save us $3,200 a year. So if we just have 100 people, it's $320,000 in grant savings a year. You can see where the savings will quickly add up. Thank you, and we urge your support.
Next, please.
Ekaterina Burton with the California Hunger Action Coalition in strong support. We urge your aye vote.
All righty, next, please.
Kelly Brooks on behalf of the California State Association of Counties in support.
Martha Flammer, representing the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors in support.
Julian Navorus on behalf of the Urban Counties Caucus in strong support.
Nicole Wertelman, City and County of San Francisco in support.
Beth McGovern on behalf of the California Commission on the Status of Women in strong support.
Pastor Grajeda, representing the Gamble Institute out of Alameda County, in support.
Thank you. Sean Vasquez, representing Healthy Oakland out of Oakland, strong support.
Thank you. All righty. Any other support testimony? Seeing none. Opposition testimony? Finance, you have a comment on this one?
This bill would likely increase CalWORKS costs by millions of dollars annually due to additional families becoming eligible and other families maintaining eligibility that would otherwise be ineligible under current law. Absent a corresponding reduction in CalWORKS program, all costs resulting from this bill would be borne by the general fund. The Department of Finance is opposed.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, the bill does meet the suspense criteria, so it will go there unless there's objections from the committee, and there are none. Would you care to close?
Thank you, Senators, for the opportunity to present. I just wanted to share with you something I did mention earlier. less than 0.1% of the applicants are actually denied from this opportunity to participate in CalWorks based on this asset test. We believe that in the long run, as in the analysis, that there will be a savings of millions of dollars to the state. This is a highway state. People, we rely on them to jump on these roads to get to work, and I ask for your consideration and support ultimately in moving this forward. Thank you for your time.
Good points, and we will work with you while it's on suspense.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That item goes to suspense, members. We have one item for which presentation has been waived. That's Mr. Wachowski's debtor's exemptions in bankruptcy. That is AB 929. Is there testimony in favor of AB 929 on bankruptcies? Is there opposition testimony? And there's some opposition testimony, so come on up. And then I have one bill to present for Mr. Fuentes, the state claims bill. Go ahead.
Morning, Madam Chair, members. Alex Alanis with the California Bankers Association. Actually, we are opposed unless amended. The one provision in the bill that we're opposing is the section relating to the homeowner's exemption. The homeowner's exemption has been increased just recently. On January 1st, 2010, there was a significant increase in the homeowner's exemption. This bill now doubles that what's in statute today. We believe that the homeowner's exemption in the bill today, the way it's written, will only benefit the more wealthier Californians or those who have significant amount of equity in their homes. Most of us don't have that type of equity that's listed in the bill. We believe that if you remove that portion of the bill, you'll save a significant amount of money in the general fund. And the other parts of the bill we do not have any opposition to. We believe that the tools of the trade part of the bill is fine. Those numbers aren't that big. We're fine with someone who's trying to land back on their feet and want to at least shield some assets that would help them in the profession. So that part we're fine with. It's just the homeowner's exemption provision we would like to see removed from the bill.
Thank you. We'll deal with that while it's on suspense. Any other testimony in favor on AB 929? Excuse me, seeing none. Finance, do you have a comment?
The Franchise Tax Board indicates that increasing the homestead exemption could result in the loss of general fund revenue of approximately $1.1 million in 2011-12 and $1.5 million in 12-13. We don't have. We believe that the other costs in the bill would be minor and absorbable.
All righty, members, that is Mr. Wiskowski's item on bankruptcy. That goes to suspense. This is the claims bill, then we'll open the roll. Thanks, everybody. Senator Walton will chair.
Are we adding stipends to everything?
All righty, this is AB 140 by Mr. Fuentes. This is one of our annual claims bills, members. It is sponsored by the Department of Justice. The bill would appropriate $232,000 from the general fund to pay 2 claims. There are no criminal actions here, settling 2 lawsuits. The Department of Finance supports the payment of these claims, and Jessica DeVincenzi from the Department of Justice is here to answer the questions. You can thank Mr. Francoya for the proper pronunciation of your last name. There's no opposition. I ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in support?
Yes, Jessica DeVincenzi on behalf of the Attorney General's Office in support of this legislation. AB 140 is the Attorney General's annual claims bill introduced under the Government Code, which requires our office to request an appropriation from the legislature in instances where there is not a proper appropriation. We believe that the 2 claims in this bill satisfy this criteria, and we would ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in opposition? Questions of the committee?
I move the bill.
Okay, the bill has been moved by Senator Alquist, and this is a due pass. Oh, I'm sorry, Finance.
The Department of Finance supports this measure as it contains payments for the settlements and judgments noted by the author that have been approved by the administration. The cost of the bill is reflected in the administration's current fiscal plan, and any funds appropriated in excess of the amounts required for the payment of the final claims would revert to the general fund.
All right, thank you. All right, call the roll, please.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Walters?
Aye.
Walters, aye. Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Emerson? Emerson, aye. Liu? Liu, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye. Price? Price, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
7-0, and we're all here now except for Senator Steinberg, so that bill is out. Members, we'll go back to the top of the file just for the action items. And so the next one is Ms. Ma's AB 300. The chair is aye, the vice chair is no. We'll call the roll for the absent members, and we'll go to the vice chair first on that one.
Walters?
Not voting for.
Pavley? Aye. Pavley, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
6-0, that bill is out. Next one is Mr. Chesbro? No, Mr. Solorio. Beg your pardon.
Pavley?
Hold it. The chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The chair is aye and the vice chair is aye. Correct. AB 315, insurance.
Pavley, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
7-0, that bill is out. Next one is Mr. Chesbro. Vice chair, aye. Chair, aye.
Pavley? Aye. Pavley, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
Isn't that it? Oh, 7-0, that bill is out. And then last is Mr. Perez. Let's see. We are at AB 1066, Medi-Cal and Public Health. Chair, aye, and vice chair, aye.
Pavley? Aye. Pavley, aye. Runner? Steinberg?
That completes the file for today. Thanks, everyone. We're adjourned.